You will never have your own children. Never. For what you did to me, and for rejecting me afterward, I speak from my soul, you will never hold a child of your own. No baby's cry will ever be heard near you. You will remember this day. One day, you will regret everything you did to me. But by then, it will be too late. Mark my words.
She was just a maid, young, quiet, and hardworking. All she wanted was to earn a living and take care of herself. But everything changed when her boss started looking at her differently. He saw her beauty and took advantage of her trust. Now, the result, she is pregnant. Instead of help, she faces denial and rejection. The man who hurt her pretends nothing happened. She lost her self-respect. She feels ashamed and broken. In just one moment, her world fell apart, leaving her to carry the pain, the disgrace, and the child all alone. Stella had only been working for the Felix family for 3 months. She was just 23 years old, quiet, humble, and always respectful. Coming from a poor background, she was grateful for the job. Every morning, she woke up early, cleaned the large house, cooked meals, and made sure everything was neat and tidy. Mr. and Mrs. Felix treated her well. They didn't have children, so the house was always calm and peaceful. Mr. Felix was a respected man in the community, working in a big oil company. Everyone called him a gentleman. His wife, Mrs. Felix, was kind and friendly. That day, the sun had already gone down when Stella was sweeping the sitting room. She was almost done when the front door creaked open. She looked up quickly. "Good evening, sir," she said with a small smile. "You're home quite late today." Mr. Felix walked in slowly. He was wearing his usual black suit, but something was wrong. He staggered a little as he walked, and his tie was loose. "Hello, fine girl," he said, smiling strangely. He reached out and placed his hand on her shoulder. Stella froze. The strong smell of alcohol hit her nose. Her eyes widened slightly. "Sir, I think you need a bath," she said carefully, gently stepping away. She turned quickly and went upstairs to prepare his bath. Her heart was beating fast. Why is he touching me like that? He has never done that before. A few minutes later, she came down. "Your bath is ready, sir," she said quietly. Mr. Felix stared at her again, his eyes lazy. "Fine, Stella," he muttered with a drunken grin. "So fine, do fine." He stumbled as he walked past her and slowly climbed up the stairs. Stella watched him, confused and scared. He was acting like a different person. She whispered to herself, "God, please protect me." Mrs. Felix had traveled 2 days ago to the village to care for her sick mother. That meant only Stella and Mr. Felix were in the house now. That night, after finishing her chores, Stella locked her room door, knelt beside her bed, and prayed. "God, thank you for today. Please, let me sleep in peace. Amen." She turned off the light, climbed into bed, and slowly closed her eyes. Everything was quiet. Suddenly, something felt wrong. Her eyes snapped open. She wasn't dreaming. Someone was in her room. She sat up slowly. Her heart skipped a beat. And then she saw him. "Jesus," she gasped. It was Mr. Felix, standing by her bed, wearing only his boxers, and smiling in a way that sent fear crawling all over her skin. "Sir? What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice shaking. Before she could scream, he rushed forward and covered her mouth with his hand. "Shh, don't be scared," he whispered. "I love you, fine girl. You're even more beautiful than my wife. You don't know how much I've wanted you." "Please, sir," Stella cried, struggling. "You're drunk. Don't do this. Please." She tried to push him off, but he was stronger. He pinned her down. "No one will know," he whispered again. "Just relax." And then he did it. He forced himself on her. When he was done, he rolled off and fell asleep beside her like nothing had happened. But for Stella, her world had just shattered. She curled up in a corner of the room, her nightgown torn, her body trembling. Tears rolled down her cheeks nonstop. She couldn't believe what had just happened. "Why?" she cried softly. "What did I do to deserve this?" She didn't sleep that night. Not even for 1 second. As the morning sun rose, soft light filled the room. Mr. Felix turned on the bed, groaned, and opened his eyes. He sat up slowly, confused. "What? Where am I?" he asked, looking around the room. Then he saw her, Stella, sitting on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest, eyes red and swollen from crying all night. Suddenly, his eyes widened. "Stella? What happened? Why are you here? How did I get into your room?" Stella didn't answer. She just stared at him. A memory flashed in his head. The night before. Her screams. Her tears. Her soft voice begging him to stop. He covered his mouth with his hand. No. Tell me I didn't do anything. I was drunk. I didn't mean to. I can't touch you. You're just the help. You're beneath me. Those last words cut deeper than a knife. Stella's hands tightened. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. Mr. Felix got up quickly and left the room. Outside the door, he paused, breathing heavily. God, what have I done? Later that day, the house was quiet again. Mr. Felix acted like nothing had happened. He even greeted Stella like usual, but she didn't answer. She couldn't. That evening, Mrs. Felix returned from the village. She looked tired but happy to be back. "Stella," she called. "I'm home." Stella came out slowly from the kitchen and helped her carry her bags inside. "How's my husband?" she asked, smiling. "He's fine," Stella replied softly, avoiding eye contact. That night, Mr. and Mrs. Felix sat in the sitting room. Stella served them dinner quietly and went back to the kitchen. Mrs. Felix leaned closer to her husband. "Honey, have you noticed something strange about Stella?" she asked in a low voice. Mr. Felix looked up nervously. "What do you mean?" "Since I came back, she's been acting different. She avoids me. She doesn't smile. She seems afraid of something." "She's probably just tired," he replied quickly. "Maybe she missed you. She'll be fine." But Stella wasn't fine. Each day that passed, she grew colder. She worked like a robot. No smile, no words, no joy. Sometimes she would stop while washing dishes and just stare at nothing, lost in thought. One evening, while washing plates in the kitchen, Mrs. Felix walked in quietly. "Stella," she said gently. Stella didn't hear her. She was too deep in thought. Mrs. Felix touched her lightly on the back. Stella screamed and dropped the glass in her hand. It shattered on the floor. "Oh my God. I'm sorry, Ma," she said quickly, bending down to pick the broken pieces, her hands shaking. Mrs. Felix touched her arm gently. No, don't worry about the glass. Stella, talk to me. What is going on? You've changed." "I'm sorry, Ma. I'm fine," Stella said, not meeting her eyes. "But you're not," Mrs. Felix replied, her voice soft. "You don't sing while working anymore. You barely talk. You look like you're carrying something heavy inside you." Just then, Mr. Felix walked in. "Is Stella giving you trouble again?" he said, forcing a smile. "She's been acting very strange lately. Let's go, love." He took his wife's hand quickly. Mrs. Felix looked back at Stella, concerned. Something didn't feel right. Something was very wrong. And Stella's silence? It screamed louder than any words could. The sun was high in the sky, but Stella's heart felt cold. Every day, she walked around the house doing her chores, but her mind was full of fear and sadness. Her stomach was growing slowly, and she knew she couldn't hide it for long. She tried many times to talk to Mrs. Felix, but Mr. Felix always found a way to stop her. Sometimes, he would sit close and stare at her with angry eyes. Other times, he would call Mrs. Felix away just when Stella opened her mouth to speak. One evening, Mr. Felix was sitting on the couch in the sitting room, watching football. Stella walked in slowly, her hands shaking. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice low and nervous. He didn't take his eyes off the TV. "What is it again, Stella?" he said, clearly annoyed. She took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant, sir." Mr. Felix turned his head slowly. "What did you just say?" "I'm pregnant," she repeated, this time with more courage. "And you're the father. That night, you came into my room drunk. You forced yourself on me. I didn't want it to happen. I tried to forget. But now, there's a baby." The TV noise faded in the background. Mr. Felix stood up and looked at her like he was seeing a ghost. "You must be mad," he shouted. "What kind of rubbish are you talking about? Pregnant? That's your business." "No, sir. It's not just my business. You did this to me." "I said shut up," he roared, his face red with anger. "I'm not the father of any bastard child. Keep your lies to yourself." Stella stepped back, her legs weak. "Please, don't pretend. You know the truth." "I said never say that again," he shouted louder. "And don't even think of telling my wife. If you say a word to her, I swear, I'll kill you with my own hands. Try me and see." Tears rolled down Stella's face. She turned and ran outside. Behind the house, she dropped to her knees and cried. Her whole body shook as she covered her face. The pain, the shame, the fear, it all poured out. The next day, she tried again to speak with Mrs. Felix when Mr. Felix was not around. But just as she started talking, he came in and shouted, "Leave my sight this minute." Stella walked away silently, holding her chest. Her heart felt like it would break. That night, Mr. Felix sat down with his wife in the bedroom. "I think we need to let Stella go," he said, pretending to be calm. Mrs. Felix looked surprised. "But what happened?" "She's no longer doing her work properly. She's careless, always moody, and to be honest, she's beginning to act strange. She wasn't hired for charity. If she can't focus, she should go." Mrs. Felix sighed. "She has changed lately, but maybe something is bothering her." "She's just ungrateful," he said quickly. "The earlier we send her away, the better." After some thought, Mrs. Felix agreed. A few days later, they called Stella. "We're sorry, but you'll have to leave," Mrs. Felix said softly. "We've decided to let you go." Stella's mouth opened in shock. "You're sending me away?" she asked with trembling lips. Mrs. Felix nodded. "You can stay till the weekend. But you have to leave." Stella said nothing. She turned and walked back to her room. That night, she cried silently into her pillow, hugging her small stomach. It was a Saturday morning. Mrs. Felix had already left for work. Mr. Felix sat in the sitting room, reading the newspaper. Stella came down the stairs slowly, holding a small travel bag. Her eyes were swollen from crying all night. She walked toward the door but stopped and looked at him. He raised his head and scoffed. "What are you waiting for? Leave already." But Stella stood firm. Her lips trembled, but her voice was steady. "You can throw me out, sir. You can call me names. But one thing I know, you will never have children." Mr. Felix dropped the paper and stood up. "What did you just say?" "You heard me. You destroyed my life. You denied me and sent me away like trash. But my words will follow you. You may have money, cars, and a big house, but you will never hear a child call you Daddy. That is my curse to you. Get out!" he shouted like a madman. "Who gave you the mouth to curse me? You useless girl. Poverty has eaten your brain. I don't ever want to see your face again." Stella looked at him with tears falling down her cheeks. Then she turned and walked out, leaving the door open behind her. 8 years later, the house was still big. The cars were still parked outside. But inside, something was missing. Mr. and Mrs. Felix had no child. They had changed maids many times. They had bought baby clothes in hope. They had visited many hospitals. Doctors said there was nothing wrong with them. Everything was normal. But no baby came. Mrs. Felix started visiting churches. She saw different pastors and prophets. She fasted and prayed. But year after year, nothing changed. One day, she visited a strange seer in a quiet village. The woman stared at her for a long time and said something that shook her bones. "Your husband knows why you are childless. He is hiding something from you. Ask him." Mrs. Felix went home that night, her heart racing. She sat beside her husband in the bedroom. "Honey," she said slowly, "do you have something to tell me?" Mr. Felix looked up. "What do you mean?" "I visited a prophet today," she said, her voice shaking. "He said you know why we've not had children." Mr. Felix frowned. "I told you to stop going to those fake places." "Please," she begged. "If there's anything you're hiding, just tell me. I'm your wife." He stood up, angry. So now it's my fault? No one is blaming you, she said with tears in her eyes. I just need the truth. After some silence, he sighed and said, Fine. I'll go with you tomorrow to meet that prophet. Let me hear this rubbish myself. The next day, they arrived at the seer's place. The old woman looked at them and didn't waste time. She turned to Mr. Felix and said one name, Stella. Mr. Felix froze. Mrs. Felix turned sharply. You mean the Stella that worked in our house? The seer nodded. She left with a curse in her mouth. Your husband has something to confess. Tears rolled down Mr. Felix's face. His hands trembled. My wife. I'm sorry. It happened long ago. I was drunk. I made a terrible mistake. I went into Stella's room and forced myself on her. She told me she was pregnant, but I denied it. I was scared. I sent her away. Before she left, she cursed me that I'd never have children. Mrs. Felix covered her mouth in shock. Oh God, why didn't you tell me? I was ashamed, he whispered. I didn't know how to face you. I felt I had betrayed you. Mrs. Felix started crying. I knew something was wrong. I could feel it. They held each other tightly. The pain was too much. We have to find her, she said. We need to find Stella and ask for her forgiveness. But neither of them knew where she was or how to begin. The rain beat hard against the windows as Mr. Felix sat silently on the edge of the bed. His eyes were red. He hadn't slept all night. Mrs. Felix stood near the window, staring at the gray sky. We must find her, she whispered. Mr. Felix looked up slowly. Even if she hates us? She has every right to, she said, turning to him. But we still have to try. So they packed a small bag, locked their house, and started their journey. They called people, old friends, former neighbors, church members. Nobody knew where Stella had gone. She just disappeared after you let her go, one old neighbor said over the phone. She was pregnant, alone, and scared, another said. Who would stay after that? They didn't stop. Mr. Felix used his savings to hire a private driver. They traveled for hours, eating in roadside restaurants and sleeping in cheap hotels. 4 long days passed on rough, lonely roads filled with dust, trees, and silence. Then on the 5th morning, an old woman they met in a village market said, You're looking for a young woman with 2 children? One looks mixed. Yes. Mrs. Felix said quickly. She had a child for a man who rejected her. The woman nodded. She lives in the next village. She's married now. Good man. Kind family. Mr. Felix's heart beat faster. He grabbed his wife's hand. Let's go. The village was quiet, peaceful, and full of green trees. Children played by the roadside, chasing old tires with sticks. And then they saw her. Stella stood outside a small shop made of wood and tin. She was holding a small baby in her left arm. A boy about 10 stood beside her, helping pack some fruits into a basket. She was laughing, dressed in a simple wrapper and blouse. She looked peaceful, older, wiser, stronger. Mrs. Felix's voice cracked as she called, Stella? Stella turned. Her smile dropped. She froze. Her eyes went wide in shock. Mr. and Mrs. Felix slowly walked closer. And then, without warning, they dropped to their knees on the dusty ground. Stella, Mrs. Felix cried, her voice shaking. Please, forgive us. Mr. Felix wiped his eyes. Please forgive me, for everything. Stella stared at them, speechless. Her legs shook. She sat slowly on a wooden bench, holding her baby tightly. Her husband, a tall, kind-looking man, came out of the shop. Who are they? He asked gently. Stella whispered, They are from my past. She looked at them again, eyes filled with tears. You threw me away like I was trash, she said, her voice calm but full of pain. I came to your house with a clean heart. I had no family. I had nothing. But I worked hard. I respected you. I was loyal. She stood up, baby still in her arms. But one night, your husband destroyed everything. And both of you turned your backs on me. Mr. Felix bent his head, crying. I was drunk, Stella, he said. I was afraid to lose my wife. I lied. I acted like a coward. I was wrong. Please, forgive me. Stella cried too. I walked the streets with that pregnancy. No food. No money. No shelter. I begged people. I almost gave up. Her husband held her hand now. But I found her, he said. I knew she was hurt, but I also saw her strength. I accepted her. I accepted the child. And later, we got married. Now we have another baby too. The young boy stepped forward slowly. He was tall, with strong shoulders and sharp eyes, just like Mr. Felix. Mr. Felix gasped. That's him? Stella nodded. Yes. He is your son. The boy looked at Mr. Felix. Are you really my real father? Mr. Felix knelt again. Yes, my son. I am. And I am so sorry. The boy looked at his mother, then back at the crying man in front of him. He dropped his bag and ran into Mr. Felix's arms. Mrs. Felix broke down. She walked to Stella and hugged her tightly. Both women cried in each other's arms. I never knew what happened, Mrs. Felix said. I thought you just changed. I didn't know the truth. I didn't see it. Stella wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I forgive you, she said softly, because I have healed. I found peace. Mr. and Mrs. Felix stayed in the village that night. They sat outside with Stella and her husband, talking, sharing, crying, and laughing. For the first time in years, they felt light, like a burden had been lifted from their hearts. 2 months later, Mrs. Felix sat quietly in a hospital waiting room. She held her husband's hand. I don't want to get my hopes up, she said. Let's just hear what the doctor says, he replied gently. When the doctor came out smiling, Mrs. Felix stood up fast. Congratulations, the doctor said. You're pregnant. Tears flowed freely. She covered her mouth and looked at her husband. He hugged her tightly. It's a miracle, he whispered. No, she said with a smile. It's forgiveness. Back in the village, Stella knelt beside her children's beds, whispering a prayer of thanks. In the city, Mrs. Felix placed her hand on her belly, feeling the small life growing inside her. Pain had brought separation. Truth had brought tears. But forgiveness brought healing. And that was the beginning of peace.